Hi everyone, my name is Ali Yousefi. Today I'll talk about Microsoft Business Applications. That covers Microsoft Power Platform, Microsoft Dynamics 365, both CE and F&O. Specifically today, we're going to cover resiliency and the shared responsibility matrix between Microsoft and the customer. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the matrix. All right. So what you see here is the shared responsibility matrix for resiliency I've put together. I've tried to align closely to things you may have already seen, other matrices you've already seen through Azure or other services, maybe even Amazon or other providers. So traditionally, it looks like it falls into like basically three areas, right? What is the provider? What are they responsible for? You as a customer, what are you responsible for? And sort of that shared piece in the middle where we have maybe opportunities to help each other out, right? So that could come in the phase of like certain features that you may enable or not, and choosing to enable it, or if you enable it, enabling it a certain way, and then doing the say testing or something on it. That's going to help make you more resilient. So let's go ahead and break these down into each individual platform. So I'm going to start with Microsoft's responsibility as the provider for Power Platform and Dynamics 365. All right, let's focus on this core platform resiliency area, specifically platform infrastructure, hardware, and updates. So this is what Microsoft provides to you as a customer, ensuring that there is availability with a specific SLA. Go refer to the service level agreement documents. I think it's in the Trust Center. But go look at that if you want to go find exactly what the current SLA is here. But I've grouped it into three major areas: the infrastructure, the hardware, and the updates. The infrastructure has like the redundancy, the availability. Think of if you've worked with virtual machines or you've worked with even servers, right? Having that redundancy piece of it. So if something fails, it's going to go to the next one. And that could be locally within a data center. That could be even geographically across borders and boundaries and so on. For hardware, making sure that the hardware that runs the platform is up to date, that it's secure by default, that everything it's running on is giving you the most optimal experience as a customer. And then finally, the updates itself, right? So the updates of the platform, making sure the platform, the code, the bits that you're writing upon, right? Dynamics 365 building model-driven apps, or Power building low-code Canvas apps, Power Automate flows, and so on. Making sure that platform is up to date with the most resilient type capabilities that we have internally to provide to you. So that piece is all on Microsoft, and if there is any issue with that, that is Microsoft's responsibility to you as a customer to ensure that it meets the SLAs and recovers in a certain amount of time and so on. Okay, let's talk the shared responsibility capabilities. Okay, for this one, we're going to cover this middle piece, this resilient enabled capability. So responsibility varies by what choices you make or the customer makes, right? So this is going to be this box with the diagonal line in it. So that's going to cover license, data, system messaging, governance. So we break down each one and how going about this. So license quota and throttling. That one's come up in internal conversations, what that really means. So the way I look at it is to understand, how you build. Let's take Power Automate as an example, right? Power Automate has multiple different ways to assign to a flow from, what kind of license is it, how's it being used, and if you've seen some of the documentation based on how it's being used, it can be, certain like throttled and maybe deemed not as critical. So reviewing that documentation, making sure that your Power Automate flows are set up to be the most optimal if they're mission critical flows. And that's where, going into a further discussion on asset inventory and what's important to you, what's your critical applications and flows that are part of your workflow is going to be important. But just look at that as you can be throttled, right? Any person using this platform can be throttled. That's how the core platform keeps itself, healthy and resilient for other customers. So think about how you are assigning your mission critical apps to make sure that they have the most optimal way of running so that they don't get throttled, right? So make sure you look at that. So enable what you can for licensing wise, so that you have the biggest quota to be able to do, multiple runs or multiple calls, whatever that would be. Data retention and recovery. So the engineering team has put out a lot of great capabilities for managed environments and for just standard environments as well. Some recent ones like disaster recovery, at least at the time of this recording, disaster recovery is a preview feature that's come out where you do DR drills and so on. Also, just having data retention, so setting up audits, or excuse me, setting up the recycle bin, setting up how long you're retaining data. So all of that can be configured, even like how long per table. So since it's configurable, that's going to be something that Microsoft's providing, and the customer would have to configure how long they want. So if you have business critical data, so say you're a sales team, you have I don't know, opportunities that you want to be able to track win-loss rates and so on, or who touched this and that, you can configure the retention for that. You may even get into using things like Azure Synapse for long-term retention. These are, again, capabilities that are provided to you that should make your data more resilient. And same with recovery, disaster recovery, so you could test your integrations, any downstream processes, and back bidirectionally back into Dynamics. So that piece these are capabilities that are provided to you from Microsoft. And we'll have further learnings on how to work through each one of these here. System messaging, so that I look at from what does Microsoft for Message Center provide to you, or for service health, right? So if you are an admin, you've probably seen messages that do things like here's platform updates, or here's deprecations, or here is degradations in performance. So this messaging is provided to Microsoft from Microsoft to you, but it's ultimately, if it's something like it's a deprecation announcement, then you'll have to take action on that. So Microsoft does provide that, but ultimately the responsibility of moving off a deprecated feature, if you're on it, is on the customer. Finally, with governance and intra ID, the sort of the identity piece of it, most companies I've seen use intra ID, previously Azure AD, and so that is the front door into your application. So making sure that is up. Microsoft is, as the core provider of intra ID, provides SLAs for that. But also it's configurable by your company, and then what licenses folks have and what they have enabled. There is a piece of it that is owned by the customer for logging and so on. I recommend the Azure piece here. Azure has a great piece on describing intra ID and what's the responsibility for customers. You could find a lot of that in the security piece, but just remember resiliency for intra. If you can't get into the platform, then your platform's not usable. It's not resilient, right? To change, and that's ultimately what we're wanting to do here, is make our platform resilient to change. Let's customer responsibility. This is the final piece of the matrix. Okay, so this is going to be this applications piece here. So it's the light blue, says customer. This one has quite a bit onto it, and I understand this is probably where most people who are watching this want to go deep dive into. We'll have follow-up videos for each one of these, but just keep in mind what you would be responsible for as a customer, right? This is a platform that you're building on. So how you're building something, how you're designing something, that's your data model. How are you connecting the dots data-wise? How are you making sure that you're not having anything redundant, that you're not building things that are not necessarily designed to, and best practices. So for instance, developers, we talk about making sure that things are decoupled, there's high cohesion. When you're building solutions, making sure that they're segmented properly, that they sort of stack on top of each other, using managed solutions versus unmanaged solutions. For application testing, making sure you're testing. Testing's important. Just because we're in the cloud doesn't mean you don't have to test anymore. You need to test your functionality. So there's things that Microsoft's provided, such as first release or preview environments that you can put your customizations into and test all those. The architecture, like I mentioned, the segmentation is key. Change management, so making sure you're documenting, you are automating your ALM where you can. So try to remove as much manual piece as you can, automate where you can. Observability, so looking at monitoring, so making sure that you're monitoring how your ALM process is going, how your testing is going, how your customizations, monitoring the even commits that are happening from your developers, making sure that you have peer reviews, code reviews, things like that. But monitoring all that, making sure you're setting up proper alerting, right, for on your end to make sure that your application's resilient from the changes being made to the deployment of those changes to the users using the customizations. Finally, the application's failure recovery. So you're writing customizations. You're probably writing some code. This code is most likely interacting with some sort of APIs. If it's the Dataverse API, if it's external APIs, hitting Power Automates, whatever. These things can fail. They will fail, right? So how do I build in something to help recover? If it's, there's certain patterns out there you can look. I don't want to go deep dive into it, but you can, retry things. You can back off things. So think about when something is failing. How do I just not continue just sending the same thing over and over and over, expecting a different result? So again, we'll cover this, and I think more deep dive videos would probably be better here. So just want to keep this one nice and brief. So just as a customer, testing, architecture, change management, monitoring observability, and then finally failure recovery. Again, thank you for watching. Again, we'll have more videos as we deep dive more into the matrix and responsibilities from customer as well as the shared responsibility piece of it. Thank you for watching.